Good morning, everyone, and thank you for participating in the Washington State Department of Agriculture's virtual press conference. My name is Carla Salp, and I am the Public Engagement Specialist with WSDA and an agency spokesperson on the Asian Giant Hornet and our agency's response. I'll be moderating today's press conference. Today we'll be hearing from Sven Spichiger, Managing Entomologist for the department and the lead entomologist for the agency's Asian Giant Hornet response. In a few moments, Sven will share information about the first Asian Giant Hornet trapped in Washington State and will be available to take questions. Anne LeBrun from USDA APHIS will also be available for questions but will not be making a statement. First, a few reminders and requests. In order for the best video quality for our speaker, participants are asked not to connect using their own webcam. After Sven has provided some basic information, we will open up for questions. To ask a question, please use the raise your hand function, and I will call on you and unmute your line so that you can ask your question. Please do not unmute your line on your own. Alternatively, you can submit a question using the chat function. This press conference is being live streamed on tvw.org and should be available there after the press conference ends. The press conference will also be available on our website later today. We did issue a press release earlier this morning, which is also available on our website. A link to download photos that can be used with credit to the Washington State Department of Agriculture can be found on our online press release as well. I would also like to point you to some helpful resources. Information about Asian Giant Hornets can always be found on WSDA's website at agr.wa.gov/hornets. In addition to the website, you can subscribe to WSDA's news releases, blog, and the PEST program email listserv to receive alerts about Asian Giant Hornets. If you're with the media, please be sure to sign up for the news releases because that's how you'll get alerts about upcoming virtual press conferences. Links to all of these resources are available on our website, or you can contact me and I can send you the links to sign up. Thank you, Sven. Please go ahead.
Okay, do you have it there, Carla?
Yes, we see you now. Thanks.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking a little time to receive an update from us here. So as a refresher, last September, the city of Nanaimo in British Columbia detected an Asian giant hornet nest and subsequently destroyed it. Later in 2019, around December 8th, a Washington State citizen turned in a positive specimen from the Blaine area, and since then, additional reports have identified 5 more Asian giant hornets, which have been confirmed in Washington State. As a response this year in 2020, we've deployed a number of traps, mostly in the Whatcom-Skagit County area. Our program traps total 467 as of this morning. We also have cooperating agencies and municipalities and nonprofit groups also setting traps, and that totals 297 traps. And one thing that I find absolutely amazing is that the public has also come forward and on their own dime has set over 1,000 traps, 1,080. And so we have a network of 1,844 traps attempting to detect and locate Asian giant hornets in Washington State. On July 14th, one of the WSDA program traps did unfortunately detect a single specimen. Yeah, I'm sorry, I said August. It was July 14th. And following their protocol, they submitted the sample. And on late in the day on July 29th, we were able to discern that there was in fact an Asian giant hornet in this trap. The trap was located in the Birch Bay area. And Carla, if we could have a map pop up sort of showing where that is, I would like to show that to the folks. And you can see it's just a little north of the Cherry Point refinery. This is approximately 6 miles from the original detection up in Blaine. And basically speaking, this is not unexpected. We knew we had a nest that went through late into the year, only detecting it for the first time in December. We knew that that one had likely produced mating casts, so queens and drones, and so there was the opportunity for some hornets to escape from what we already knew and create some new colonies this year. Our earlier spring detections in the Custer area and also in the Bellingham area of Queens were very good finds, because that means if the queen is captured, then no nest will be established. This detection unfortunately means that we did get a nest that was able to establish somewhere there in the Birch Bay area. Our next step, of course, will be to deploy a number of live traps in the area, up to 40 probably, depending upon what the terrain looks like. These will be monitored daily with the hopes of trapping additional wasps from this nest. We will then put some of our protocols into action, which may involve either a process called beelining, which means we follow them back using sight lines to their nesting site, or by attaching a tracking tag. We have already had the opportunity to test some of these out on one of our local species, and it seems like we're kind of ready to go for that. It's kind of hit or miss. If they fly into some vegetation, we're in trouble sometimes, but we've practiced it a few times now, and we seem to be getting it down pat. We hope to have this done prior to this nest establishing breeding cast, and so we're giving ourselves a deadline of early to mid-September, and we hope to locate the nest this came from prior to that. Once we do that, we do have an eradication protocol all ready to go. We have a couple of various different methods that we could use, and we're kind of ready to go for that as well. That will be usually a nighttime activity, and can be a little bit dangerous. So we'll have the area cordoned off, and then we'll be able to get to the nest and use our eradication methods and wipe it out. So with that, Carla, is there anything else I need to cover before we go to questions?
I'm not sure at what point you want to mention the environmental documents.
Oh, sure. So the USDA and WSDA have been working for quite a few weeks now, making sure that we have environmental documents for this particular pest activity. The documents were posted just the other day, and they are up on the APHIS website, and that is www.aphis.usda.gov/PLANTHEALTH/EA. So www.aphis.usda.gov/planthealth/EA. And we encourage everybody to go ahead and review those. Those will detail the activities that we intend to undertake for an eradication.
Thanks, Sven. We'll now be taking questions from the news media. Again, please use the raise your hand function to indicate that you'd like to ask a question, and I will call on you and unmute your line. You can also send a question via the chat box, and I'll answer those questions for you. All right, let's see. Okay, I have Tom Bance. I'm going to unmute your line. Tom, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Sven, can you elaborate a little bit on the typical flight range of one of these hornets that leads you to believe that the nest is in the Birch Bay area and not maybe farther north, or maybe even over the border in Canada?
Certainly, thank you very much. So the typical flight range of a foraging Asian giant hornet from its nest is within 2 kilometers, generally speaking. They are capable of foraging up to 8 kilometers, so just 5 miles. And so it's entirely possible. This was on the far outskirts of its range, but the greater likelihood is that it's within 1 to 2 kilometers of where we trap the insect. And so our response trapping will be pretty heavy in that area. And if we get additional detections, we'll be able to sort of work back towards the nest from there.
Great. Next we have Joe Tien. Joe, you are unmuted.
All right, thank you. I'm wondering, with the discovery of the Queens in the Bellingham area and in the Custer area, and now this discovery, does it lead you to think that the infestation is more than just this one nest, that there very well could be more of these things around?
It's an excellent question. As you know, we discovered, with the help of the public, the first detection in December. And what that means to us is that at least one of them went through to produce breeding cast, and there can be 200 to 300 queens kicked out, and some of those will succeed. So this is something that we fully expected, that there is probably more than just this one. This is one of the reasons we have some 400 to 500 traps set out in and around the Whatcom County area, within close proximity to both the new detections in Bellingham and Custer, and also up in the Blaine area there. And so that leads us to believe we have very good coverage, at least with our program traps, of areas we think some nests may be established this year. But again, this is something that continues to delight me, is the public has come through with an additional 1,000 traps, which helps us keep our eyes open in areas that we're not completely focused on.
Thanks, Sven. We have a question in the chat that's asking, has this been ID'd as a worker or a queen yet?
Okay, good question. The size of this one, and generally we can eyeball it by size, is right in between what we would generally see for a worker and a queen. So we have mailed this off to the Systematic Entomology Laboratory in Washington, D.C., where they'll do a dissection and hopefully give us a definitive answer. Both my chief taxonomist, Chris Looney, and myself are leaning towards worker. It seems to have most of those characteristics, and this is the correct time of year for workers to be out. Most queens should already be happily in their nests if they're still alive, creating new workers, and you would not generally see queens out this time of year. So not a definitive answer. We expect an answer next week for sure, but we are proceeding with our reaction like this is a worker and that we have to find a nest.
And just as a note, you will find an image in the link to the images that we have in our press release that has the specimen that was captured alongside a worker and a queen sample specimens that we received from Japan, just for comparison. Okay, next question. Let's go with Michael Crow. Michael, you are unmuted.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Sven, I was looking at the release this morning, and you're quoted saying that this is proof that these traps work. So capturing this hornet in a trap where it is killed, does it give you more hope that the live traps will also be successful?
Yes, absolutely. So the reason we selected these traps, and we received an excellent set of response guidelines from our APHIS counterparts. And this was one of the trap types listed and one of several different baits listed. And this was originally touted as being a trap and lure combination that has been proven to be effective both in Japan and Korea. And obviously we're talking with our counterparts overseas, but you never really know if a trap's going to be effective in a new area because of competition from other things that they just don't have in Japan and Korea. So it's always gratifying to know that you selected the right tool, and certainly getting one in a trap kind of sort of in the middle of nowhere, if you will, is proof that the traps are effective at detecting these. And yes, we believe the live traps, if there is a nest in the area, are going to bring in more, and that is going to help us locate and hopefully destroy the nest.
Okay, great. And just one reminder, if you do put your hand up and your question is answered, if you click that raise your hand button again, it'll put your hand down so I know you don't have another question. Next question will be Matt Smith with Cairo. Matt, you're unmuted.
Perfect. Thanks, Carla. Hey, Sven, I was curious about the process of tagging these. Since you guys haven't had a live specimen yet in Washington, have you developed a strategy that you're specifically going to use moving forward to find it or to track it back to a nest?
Sure. So first of all, the fallback method is to inundate the area with traps, and then as you start getting hits in various traps, you can draw a line straight back to the nest. And so that's always going to be there. To do it faster, we can go with a tagging strategy. And we have actually tested this out on live bald-faced hornets, which are a type of yellow jacket native here to Washington. We're just fortunate enough to have a live nest that we can grab some specimens from. We've used, the process of putting them to sleep using CO2. That didn't go so well, but led to some other great things. But then also chilling them in a cooler with ice so that they're immobile. That gives us an attempt at gluing a small tracking tag to it, which we can follow back. Our much smaller native did have a little trouble flying with it, but was able to wake back up and fly and did start going back towards the nest. And so we have had just a little bit of practice. It's a little sketchy when you're donning, the almost inch thick Hornet suit, and it's July and very warm out. And of course, you're a little nervous because you don't want it to wake back up too fast. But yeah, certainly we've had some practice. More practice is always good. And we're ready to go. Just anxious to get a live one to give it a try for real.
And Tamika Cody, you are unmuted to ask your question.
Hi, I actually put it in the chat box, but that's fine. What does the process of eradication, why does the process of eradication have to take place at night? Why not during the day? You had mentioned it'll be dangerous at night, so I'm just curious as to what the concept is.
Okay, you trailed off a little bit, but I'll repeat the question. What you, I believe, were asking me was, why does the process of eradication take place at night? And the gist of that is, first of all, most of the hornets will actually be back in the nest at night. There will still some be out and about, but we have a better opportunity to impact the entire population of the nest at nighttime. Second of all, doing this at night means we can turn on red lamps and we can see what we're doing, but the hornets can't see what we're doing. And so it actually makes it a little bit safer for us. And so that is why we attack these at night, number one, so that we can impact the majority of the hornet population, and number two, just to protect us a little more and give us kind of an advantage that the hornets don't have. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, I remuted. Tamika, let me see if I can find her. Okay, Tamika, you're unmuted again.
Yes, it does answer the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, there is a question about what tracking devices have been tested.
Well, the tracking devices are just a little bit expensive, so we did not tie real tracking devices. What we did is we tied dummy tracking devices to the live natives. But generally speaking, we have the option of a tiny little camera. We have the option of a radio frequency tracker. And we're working with the University of Washington on this. And this is something that's been used in Europe and also here to track honeybees around. And it seems to work with honeybees, seems to work with the Asian hornet or Vespa velutina over in Europe. And so we have a lot of confidence that this will be successful here. What we have an issue with here is that ours is a subterranean nester. And so with a nest underground, where we've always been a little concerned that we would lose the signal, but most of these will record a GPS blip when in transit from where we released the hornet to where it's going to. And so we should be able to at least get vector lines back to the nest, and that will help us locate it. In Europe, it's a little easier because they're going after nests in a tree and they get a pretty strong signal. Unfortunately, once these go underground, we lose it. But, again, we're excited to try it for the first time. We do hope it'll work, and we always have the fallback of the traps to help us also zero in on the nest as well.
Okay, I think that is all of the questions that I see. I'm just going to scroll through here and make sure I didn't miss anyone. And this is your chance now. If you sent a message via chat and I missed it, please resend it and I'll make sure to get your question asked. We'll give it just a couple minutes here. There was one request, by the way, to have Sven redo his statement about what happened with Sven as the main photo and not the the main image rather, and not the map. So we will do that at the end, so you'll have both. And there's a question about how much does a tracking device cost and how many do you have?
Good question. So depending upon which option we go with, anywhere between $283 all the way down to $40. We actually kind of like the $40 option. I think it has a lot more potential than the more expensive one. And we have budget to do really as many as we need, if need be. And we've actually been offered some assistance from APHIS's research laboratory, Otis, on this front as well if we run out. So hopefully we won't run out. Hopefully I don't need to use more than just the one on this.
Great. And Michael Crow had a follow-up question. Does this change the outlook on containing the Hornets? Is there a realistic hope to completely wipe them out here?
Also an excellent question. It is exactly what we expected. We expected to find a few. We'll know a lot more after the entire season is over. This is actually, in my mind, a very early detection. Normally we would not see them until mid-August or so. So, this is a question that we can analyze a little bit further after, say, September or October. We should have a much better idea of what we're actually dealing with. Right now, we have a few dead queens and one worker. And of course, the workers that were captured last December. It's not really a lot to go on. What I can tell you is that my Canadian counterparts report no additional detections outside of the one in Langley earlier this spring, which was a queen. And so at least north of the border in here, it's still a pretty small amount that we've encountered. We're hoping to encounter no more, but as we're doing today, we'll keep you as updated as we can as we discover what's going on.
There was a question about whether the maps of the discovery location will be available for media use. I will upload it to that folder where there's a link to it in the online press release after the press conference is over, so you'll be able to download it from there. Great. I think that is the end of the questions. Sven, I'm going to ask you one more time to basically do your opening statement, and we'll leave it just on your face and not switch to the map. And then while you're doing that, if anybody has any last questions, please go ahead and send them in to the chat box, and we'll get those answered after Sven does his statement again.
Okay, I'll try to remember what I said, so thank you for attending our press briefing. As you know, Asian giant hornet was detected in September in Nanaimo, British Columbia. An entire nest was found, located, and destroyed. Later in 2019, on December 8th, a specimen was turned in by a Washington citizen that did turn out to be Asian giant hornet, and subsequent reports have detected an additional 5. Today, we had a 6th detection, and this is based on some of the trapping that we've been doing to attempt to locate where Asian giant hornet might be in Washington state. Our program has 467 traps out, serviced by WSDA technicians. We have cooperating agencies, municipalities, and nonprofit organizations also trapping an additional 297 traps. And in a very delighting turn of events, the general public has footed the bill to trap an additional 1,080 traps, putting 1,080 traps in service out there to help us get a really good look in the area. All told, we have 1,844 traps across mostly northwestern Washington looking for Asian giant hornet. Unfortunately, on July 14th, one of our WSDA traps was able to pick up a specimen of Asian giant hornet in the Birch Bay area, just north of the Cherry Point refinery area. This is about 6 miles from the original detection in Blaine. The specimen was submitted following our protocols to our laboratory, and our laboratory was able to find this within the sample on July 29th. We have submitted this specimen to to the Systematic Entomology Lab in Washington, D.C. To verify whether or not it is a worker or a queen. Our initial feeling is that this is a worker hornet. Our response to this will be to inundate the area immediately surrounding that positive trap capture with additional traps that are designed to capture the hornets alive. These will be checked daily, and if a live hornet is found, we will enact our protocols, which may involve beelining, which is the process of following the flight line back from where a hornet is released to its nest, or by fixing tracking tags to them and following it back using that method. In either case, should we go ahead and then locate the nest, we do have a response team ready to rope the area off and perform an eradication, which will essentially destroy most of the hornets. This will take place at night when most of the hornets are in. And basically, we're hoping this is the only one we find for the year, but we have a lot of traps out, and that should help us make sure that we cover the area and take care of any problems that are located for the year. Does that work, Carla?
Works for me. And Sven, can you announce your full name so people know how to pronounce your last name, please?
Sure, it's Sven Erik Spieschiger.
Thank you. And there is another question. Have there been any more reports of hornet attacks on local honeybees?
Not yet, but it's very early in the season. We do not expect this activity to happen much until October or November even. We did get an additional report submitted to us. That's one of the 5 that I mentioned at the beginning. And this was from a beekeeper in Blaine who reported having hives attacked last September or October. And he actually captured 2 of them and submitted the specimen to us this June. So he didn't know he was supposed to do that yet. But those sorts of reports have been very helpful to us in letting us know where to, dedicate the resources that we have to responding to this.
That looks like all of the questions that we have. So I'd like to thank everyone. If you need further information, I'd be happy to assist you. My email is ksalp, that's S as in Sam, A-L-P as in Paul, at agr.wa.gov. We appreciate you covering the Asian giant hornet story, and public awareness is obviously continues to be key in detecting Asian giant hornets. So we expect that to continue in the upcoming months. Thanks very much. And again, this should be available on TVW and hopefully soon on our website. Thanks, everyone.